Reach into your pocket right now, and there's a good chance you're carrying one. It's the most common coin in America, the little silver-colored dime you've handed over 1,000 times without a second thought. But this ordinary coin was born in grief, rushed into existence in a matter of weeks to meet a fallen president's birthday. It was accused at the height of the Red Scare of hiding the secret initials of Joseph Stalin, and it may carry a portrait quietly borrowed from a black woman artist who was never officially credited for one of the most reproduced images in human history. This is the story of the Roosevelt dime, the coin you never look at and everything hidden in plain sight upon it. It begins with a death that stopped the world. On April 12, 1945, Franklin Delano Roosevelt died. He had led the United States through the depths of the Great Depression and almost the entire span of the Second World War, 4 terms, 12 years, longer than any president before or since. To a whole generation of Americans, he was simply the president. Many young people had never known another. And when he died, with victory in Europe just weeks away, the nation's grief was overwhelming. The country wanted to honor him immediately, and they knew exactly which coin to use. To understand why it had to be the dime, and only the dime, you have to know about the dimes themselves. Roosevelt had been struck down in the prime of his life by polio, a disease that left him unable to walk unaided, a secret he largely kept from the public. But rather than hide from it, he founded a charity to fight it, the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis. And that foundation ran a fundraising campaign built on a brilliant, humble idea, that ordinary Americans could mail in a single dime to fight the disease. They called it the March of Dimes. Millions of dimes poured into the White House. The 10-cent coin was already in the public's heart Roosevelt's coin, the small change of a national act of compassion. So when he died, there was never any real question. He would go on the dime. But there was a deadline, and it was brutal. The nation wanted the new coin ready for Roosevelt's birthday, January 30th, 1946, which was also the launch of that year's March of Dimes campaign. That gave the Mint's chief engraver, John Sinnock, only a matter of weeks to design, model, and approve an entirely new coin. A fine arts commission wanted to hold a grand competition among America's greatest sculptors, the very men who had made the Mercury dime and the Buffalo nickel. The Mint director refused. There was no time. Sinnock's first designs were rejected. He reworked them. The final version was approved on the 6th of January, just 24 days before the coins had to be in people's hands. The presses at Philadelphia struck the first Roosevelt dimes, and on January 30th, the late president's birthday, they entered circulation. A coin born of mourning, delivered almost impossibly fast. The design itself is quiet and dignified. Roosevelt's profile faces left, and on the back, 3 simple symbols that sum up the man: a torch for liberty, an olive branch for peace, and an oak branch for strength and victory, the war he did not live to see won. It should have been uncontroversial. It was anything but. Because almost the instant the dime hit the streets, America went looking for a conspiracy and found one that wasn't there. Down at the base of Roosevelt's neck sat 2 small letters, JS. They were, of course, the initials of the designer, John Sinnock, exactly the kind of quiet signature engravers had placed on coins for centuries. But this was 1946. The war was over, the Cold War was beginning, and a newly frightened nation was starting to imagine communists behind every tree. And so a rumor caught fire, spreading from town to town, that the JS was not John Sinnock at all. It was Joseph Stalin. The story claimed that a Soviet agent had secretly infiltrated the United States Mint and stamped the Soviet dictator's initials onto American money as an act of communist infiltration. It is, of course, complete nonsense. It almost certainly isn't true. There was no Soviet agent, no secret plot, just an engraver's ordinary initials in the ordinary place engravers put them. But here's how deep the paranoia of that era ran. Enough Americans genuinely believed it, and were genuinely alarmed, that the United States Mint was forced to issue an official public statement, solemnly explaining that JS stood for John Sinnock, and that no, there were no Reds hiding in its walls. The rumor didn't die easily. It persisted for years, well into the McCarthy era, when the fear of hidden communists reached its fever pitch. To this day, no one has ever been able to trace where the Stalin story even started. It was pure Cold War anxiety projected onto 10 cents of silver. Now, that story is the famous one, the fun one. But there's a second controversy attached to this coin, and it is far more serious, far more unresolved, and it deserves to be told with care. Because the question is this: who really created the face of Roosevelt on the dime? Her name was Selma Burke. She was a black sculptor, a daughter of North Carolina, an artist who had come up through the Harlem Renaissance. In 1943 and 1944, she won a commission to create a bronze portrait relief of President Roosevelt for a government building in Washington. To do it properly, she managed something remarkable. She got the sitting president himself to pose for her in person at the White House. She studied him from life. She completed a strong, dignified profile of Roosevelt, and it was unveiled in Washington in September of 1945, months before Sinnock's dime was designed. And when the dime appeared, people who had seen Burke's plaque noticed something. The resemblance was striking. Selma Burke herself believed for the rest of her life that John Sinnock had based the dime's portrait on her work. Roosevelt's own son later said he believed Burke's relief had influenced the coin. The Roosevelt Presidential Library has echoed that belief. The official record has never been rewritten. Sinnock remains the credited designer, and it can't be proven conclusively that he copied her. But it is more than plausible, and it fits a painful recurring pattern in American art, where the contributions of black artists were quietly absorbed and left uncredited. Selma Burke went on to a long and celebrated career, and she never stopped telling people that the face on the dime in their pocket, one of the most reproduced portraits in the history of the world, struck billions upon billions of times, was hers. Whether or not you can prove it in a court, her story deserves to be spoken every time this coin's history is told. For all that drama, the dime settled into being the great workhorse of American change, struck by the billions, so common that it has almost no rare dates at all, but it carries the same hidden treasure that runs through so many American coins of its era. From 1946 all the way through 1964, the Roosevelt dime was struck in 90% silver. Then in 1965, as silver prices climbed and the metal vanished from the nation's coinage, the silver was stripped out and replaced with the copper-nickel clad we carry today. And so the dime, like the quarter and the half-dollar of its time, became a small dividing line in American history. A 1964 dime is real silver, worth many times its face value. A 1965 dime, identical to the eye, is worth 10 cents. The change is invisible. You have to read the date, which means that to this day, the single most common coin in America is worth checking, because every so often, tucked in a jar of pocket change or a roll from the bank, one of them turns out to be silver. There's one more quiet thing about this coin worth knowing. Look closely at the torch on the reverse, at the horizontal bands wrapped around its middle. On a coin struck with full force from a fresh die, those bands are cleanly, completely separated. Collectors call it full bands, and it's the same kind of tiny perfection they prize as full steps on the Jefferson nickel or the sharp detail on a Mercury dime. The difference between an ordinary coin and a treasured one, hiding in a detail most people will never notice. So the next time a dime lands in your palm, that small, forgettable, everyday coin, hold it a second longer. It was born from a nation's grief in a matter of weeks to reach a dead president's birthday in time. It carries a torch of liberty, an olive branch of peace, and the memory of a man who fought a disease from a wheelchair and asked a country to mail in its spare change to help. It survived a Cold War rumor that it hid the mark of Stalin. It may quietly carry the uncredited artistry of a black woman who studied Roosevelt's face in person, and now and then it's secretly made of silver. That is the Roosevelt dime, proof that even the smallest, most overlooked coin in America can hold a whole nation's history in its tiny, glinting face.